So just so that you know what you're letting yourself in for, here is a picture of one of our willing volunteers who enjoyed his time doing his exercise studies so much that he wanted photographic evidence of it, and also has allowed me to use them in this presentation. Some of the machines I think you may have seen before if you've been to the previous information evenings, and they're involved in measuring your muscle mass and your muscle strength. And the one in the middle with the strange mask on is actually just measuring how much you breathe, what you breathe in and out while cycling, and that gives us an indication of your exercise capacity and also how your mitochondria are working. So our research still needs to answer 3 key questions. Those being, is exercise going to help me with my mitochondrial disease? What type of exercise should I do? And probably what we all want to know is how much should I do? And currently we are doing a few trials in Newcastle. One looking at aerobic and resistance training with patients with a single deletion, where they take part in exercise for about 11 months. And hopefully, and we're still recruiting onto that trial, although we think we're nearly there. And also some of you may have received some information recently about another trial that we're doing, looking into the effect of aerobic or cycling exercise on your heart. And Dr. Mitochondrial, Dr. Gorman and myself will be around at the break, and there's some posters up as well, if anybody has any queries about taking part in that trial or wants to know any more information about what it entails. So we're still working on it. And the final slide seems to be customary at these events that one has a slide of somewhere in the northeast that one loves. It's usually Professor Turnbull who has a slide of St James's Park to demonstrate his love of Newcastle United. Well, this is me, believe it or not, on a sunny day like today on the northeast coast, just north of Blythe. And this is me partaking in an activity that I've only recently taken up due to my son's interest in canoeing, and I know someone in the audience also has taken up canoeing recently. And hopefully this shows you all that it's never too late to take up something new and something active. And I'd like to end there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jane. Very informative. I will give people a chance to think of some questions. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to ask questions under this setting, so I'm just going to ask a few myself, just to... one of the things, Jane, which is to just be quite clear what sort of things you can really help with people in clinic. So if people are coming to clinic, what sort of things should they be seeing you about?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's very limited what I can actually do in the clinic setting. I think it's just very important that people, especially children, it's not so much of an issue because physiotherapy is readily available in children's services, but I think adults with neurological conditions often don't get seen by a physiotherapist, whereas lots of them do need help in advice about how to start exercising. And so I think my key role is in linking the people up with their local physio service. And I know some people I already know. I think there's people from York. I am in regular contact with the physiotherapists in York. And I think it's about spreading that word so that more physiotherapists out there realise that there is a role to play in the treatment of mitochondrial disease.
Okay. And what about, it always seems to me that for certain conditions it's relatively easy to get physiotherapy. We know that ourselves, that one of the patients that we look after with mitochondrial disease had a stroke and then was put into a well-organised, kind of program. And I just how easy is it to actually access the local services? We hear about rationing and we hear about shortages, and those are only going to get worse. And I just wondered how easy it is for people to actually access those services and get what they really need.
It depends on what you want. I think people who are already in the physiotherapy service will know that when you go to physiotherapy, you will only get a certain amount of treatment, and then you will either be discharged or you'll be asked to be reviewed. If you're lucky, some areas have self-referral. So as a patient, if you feel that your walking has deteriorated, you can actually phone them up and say, I'm a bit worse, can I come and see you? But it is a postcode lottery, unfortunately. There is no standard that is set across the country, so it is very patchy. So I think probably that's why it's probably worth trying to access it from a clinic, because I probably have a feeling for what the physiotherapy service is in certain areas. And also I know some of the physiotherapists who work in these areas, so hopefully can make sure that they understand why I'm asking them to see a certain patient.
So the sort of things, again, coming back and kind of pushing you a little bit, the sort of things that are really helpful that could be improved are certain aspects of walking.
Walking, any problems with balance, or anything to do with activities of daily living, it could be that you can't get your shirt on properly because your shoulder's weak, or it could be that you just can't get to the shops because you haven't got the stamina to walk that far, or it could just be that you actually just want to actually improve your exercise capacity because you know that you're not exercising and you want to exercise but you don't know where to start.
And what about kind of relationships? You're moving away from that.
Sorry.
Right? What about, I know I'm invading your personal space, but what I'm trying to do is the kind of relationship between you and the kind of occupational therapy. You know, where is, because, and it is important for people to know that Disability North Disability North, right, are here. Where do you fit in with that? Because it's a rather grey area.
You're probably, especially in the community, previous to this job I worked in a community rehab team, and actually the roles of the physiotherapy and the occupational therapists are very blurred in the community, and just the only difference I would say is that there aren't that many occupational therapists who necessarily work in the community who do a lot of treatment. It is more about providing aids and adaptations. So then it's more the physiotherapists that maybe providing the physical activity. But there is a real blurring of roles, and we do overlap considerably. And so it could be that you get seen by an occupational therapist, but if that occupational therapist thinks that you need something else, you need more physical activity, then they would refer on to a physio. So we do work together, hopefully. Okay,
we're going to come on to talk quite a lot about some of the value of research and what it means and how it's been helpful, we think. One of the roles that you have specifically, and we've heard, I think, from Mike Trinell at one of these meetings, is about the role of exercise. At the moment you're saying that people are, for a variety of reasons, do a limited amount of exercise. Is that just harmful for their mitochondrial disease, or is it harmful overall? I mean, why are we told to do 10,000 steps?